Morning, everybody. Welcome, council officers, members of the public, to the meeting of Strategy and Resources. Reminder: please switch off your mobile phones. Members of the public, press attending this meeting virtually. Can I please ask those attending virtually to switch off your microphone to avoid any disruption during the meeting? The meeting is being recorded and will be available in due course on the council's YouTube channel. And a reminder for councillors to ensure that those attending virtually and in person can hear the proceedings. For the recording to capture the entire meeting, please ensure you project your voice and speak clearly. Please remember it's a formal meeting and therefore do not refer to each other by first names. There's no fire alarm plan, therefore if the fire alarm sounds, officers will direct you to the nearest exit from the meeting room onto the car park. And can I also remind, I think everybody does know that there's going to be an informal meeting, brief informal meeting after this SNR, looking at next year. Please. So first on the agenda, apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, proceed to apologies for absence from councillors Hunt and Hoover.
Any other apologies? Thank you. Second, to approve as a correct record of minutes of the meeting held on 2nd of September 2024. To include an additional resolution as follows: 200% second homes council tax collected in North Devon passed back to North Devon for use on housing in North Devon. Anybody got any comments on Councillor Knight? Moving any seconded. Can we all approve those minutes, please? Anybody against? Abstention?
I abstain.
Abstention, one abstention.
Thank you.
No items in item 3 that's been brought to myself to be considered as a matter of urgency. Any declarations of interest, item 4? No declarations of interest. Everything's going to be in part A, so we move on to part A now, and we have item 6, material recovery infrastructure project updates, which I think means where we're up to with the recycling.
Thanks, Chairman. Morning, members. So this is just the standard agenda item to update on the process hall works and the yard works up here at Grinsworthy. But at the last Strategy and Resources meeting, I think it was Councillor Wilkinson just asked if there'd been an update on how rounds went during the summer holidays. During the summer period, which is traditionally our busiest period, where if anything's going to go wrong, it normally does. And we thought it was going to be particularly hard with the works going on. So this presentation is something that Paul put together for our managers when he briefed managers forum the other day, and we've just updated it to include those 2 items this morning. Have the next slide, please, Ori. Okay, so what actually happened was we had minimal issues this summer. So we're looking at June, July and August predominantly, which is our busiest period. We had last summer, over those 3 months, 133 complaints that were actually logged with customer services during that period. This summer, that was down to 47. So that brought the complaints volume down down to 15.6 a month, and last year it was 44.3 a month. So it's a significant improvement on where we were. And just what Paul has put together is just putting some figures together on what that means in terms of complaints versus the number of collections that we're doing every week. So during the year, doing 79,000 collections a week, 342,332 collections a month, and that's 4,108,000 collections per year. So actually, if you look at complaints versus number of collections, it's 0.005%. So that's just worth putting that into context sometimes. Next slide, please, Ollie. So what we think has led to the improvements this year versus last year. We've got 10 additional staff recruited now, so that really represents full-timers versus agency. We've just filled some of those spaces and made them permanent members of staff. We've brought in new Bartek tablets. So previously, quite a few of the older tablets didn't work, particularly out in the rural areas. Some of the sat navs or the mapping on those was a little bit dodgy. So all vehicles now have access to one of the in-cab units or a handheld unit, and they've just got better sat navs that work out in the sticks. We've been renewing the fleet. We brought the replacement of the fleet forward a little bit on the original SFS contract. What that's actually meant is it still sounds high, but this summer over those 3 months we had 402 days where vehicles were VOR'd, so vehicles off the road, but that was versus 609 last year. So it's the newer vehicles are spending less time in the workshop, so that makes a big difference for us. And there's reduced vehicle downtime in the workshop. Next slide, please, Ori. So we go back to the works. What's been happening up here in Brinsworthy? That's the inside of our process hall. Hopefully, some of you have seen it, and it was a very black and dirty, cobwebby environment. So if you look up at those yellow steels, all of those steels are being cleaned and repainted, and if there's any corrosion in the steel, that's being repaired as we go along. So it's really cleaning the place up, and it will make it a nicer environment for the staff to work in as opposed to what they've been used to. There's been an awful lot of noise up here if you're in some of the offices upstairs, which we're always apologising about to staff. That's why it's not a swimming pool. These are the there were some drainage pits we had to dig out, but they're also pits that will load the conveyors, so the lorries will tip into those pits, and then conveyors will pick it up, take it onto the baling machine, which saves us having to move it with a telehandler all the time, which is what we're doing at the moment. Next slide, please, Ori. And so that phase of works is it's in 3 phases in the process. Also, we're this week just entering into the final phase, which is phase 3 of those works. Go back one. That big yellow block is a 15-ton baler. That's one that we've been leasing recently. Sorry, put it on there. Thank you. So that's a 15-ton baler. We had to put that on kind of specially made roller skates and move back so that we could dig a pit. And then they moved it back into position. We thought that was going to be really horrendous, but actually worked really well and was very quick. So Pierce Construction did a great job there. And then obviously we have got pits in the process hall now. So it's a working hall, but we're putting metal plates across the pits so that we can still get vehicles across them and keep the operation going. Slide, please. So round this side of the process, also that's the eastern side of the site. We put the foundations in place for the water tanks. So that's going to be 2 45,000 litre tanks of water that will serve the 90,000 litre fire suppression system. The EA requires us to have a 95,000 litre capability on site. But the Helios system that we're putting in place is at 50 sites around the country. And I don't want to tempt fate, but so far they've not had a fire that's lasted longer than 3 minutes where there's a Helios fire system in place. So it's a very good system and one that we hope is going to be very reliable. Next slide, please. So the old modular building was taken down, and that's where waste and recycling management staff sit. So we've now got the new modular building in place. So what you can see there are the footings that sit underneath the modular building. If we skip to the next slide, we got the crane in and had to deliver the modular building in 5 parts. So that's the first part in place. Skip to the next one, please. That's the last one of 5 going in. Skip to the next one, please. And that's all 5 sections in. So That's now in place and is currently being fitted out. And I think fit out is due for completion by second week of November, which is when we can start moving the staff back in. Okay, thank you. Next one. So the other bit of the project, what you can see there, the left-hand slide is where our glass bay used to be. That has to be covered with a roof. So we've had to take down all of the old concrete bunkers and the perimeter walls. And what you can see there is the new surface going in for the floor of the glass bay. And over the next few weeks, we'll see the steel frame arriving, and that will go up and the roof will go on. So that's the last part of the works in the yard. And on the right-hand slide, that is the new weighbridge, which is going to go into the road on the western side of the site, which means that all of our external contractors that are coming in to pick up recycle it will be loaded from the other side of the wall in the yard, and it will save the external lorries having to go into our yard, and it just relieves a bit of congestion in the yard. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're currently on schedule for all of the works to be complete for December, and then the new baler will come in. That's the final stage of the project, really. So that will be delivered during December, and the start of putting it together will be in January, and then doing the testing and commissioning in February. So we should be fully up and running with all the tests complete by March. And the cost of the entire project is 3.7 million, and we're currently, what we say, running just under budget. That means we're within budget constraints. Okay, next slide, please. We'll just skip that next one. Okay, that's Steve, our transport manager, modelling an e-collect vehicle, which we had on trial last week. So we went to the 30th of September. It was really, really good. It's the first HGV we've tried that's fully electric. So that one was, I think, 36 tonnes, which is as big as our largest fleet vehicle. Very, very popular with the crews. All of them liked it, even the crews that tend to complain and let us know if there's something wrong with the lorry. But they all really loved it. It was great around Lanky and Barnstaple, and doing some of the more local rounds. Thursday and Friday we sent it out to Witheridge and also North and South Malton, just to really put it through its paces, and it didn't quite finish, unfortunately. So 95% of both of those rounds were complete, but the crews came back with 5% left to go, just because they were running low on charge. But it's got a 100-mile range. And what's really key and worth thinking about is that week we saved £994 on diesel, and it cost us £26 to charge it up for the whole week. So this gives you an idea of the saving on fuel. So what we'd like to do now is test some more of those vehicles and see if we can get something that we can rely on fully for some of the more rural and more challenging rounds. But a good trial. Next slide, please. And then lastly, we want to try one of these, which is an Ectomus hydrogen electrolyzer. All sounds very, very, very exciting. What that is it's a system that you add to existing diesel engines. So we're looking at some of the older vehicles that aren't great for the environment and have quite high emissions. If you fit one of these to the engine, it puts, I'm going to get caught out on the technology, but my understanding is that it puts deionized water through the engines and produces hydrogen, and it means that the engines run more efficiently and there are less emissions, and you get less clogging up filters and that sort of thing. So it just makes the other vehicles run a little bit more efficiently. Won't do an awful lot for our carbon footprint because it's quite a small element of the fleet, but it's a positive move, and it's just an experiment that we're able to get involved in with a Devon company, just to help improve technology towards decarbonisation. And that's the end of the presentation. So if there are any questions, happy to take those.
That's excellent. Thank you, Mark.
Paul Burton put that together actually, but he's explained today.
Can I
So he can get credit.
squash the rumour here and now that you're going to work for the Link Road, because to actually have something completed on time, it's pretty miraculous, and I don't think there's any truth in that rumour, is there? You've been hesitant.
Not as far as I know.
Can I start off with a quick question? Because we've got one more we're bargaining for there, and then you've talked about the complaints issues from last year and the big drop, which is great to hear. We also said we've got 10 new full-time workers, so we can, that stops us, or means we don't have to have as many agency workers. Do we know how much we're saving on that? Is that,
It's probably,
can you let me know just how?
yeah, I can do. It's probably more or less cost neutral, if
Is
I'm
it?
honest. Yeah, I mean, we can crunch some figures on it, but it is just more,
I'm only asking because I know that was one of the issues that people were raising, that we were spending so much on agency staff in the service.
Yeah.
So I just thought, have we actually saved money? Because
I don't know, I have to crunch the figures.
Do you want me to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, you can do, John, if you like.
Jeff, I can start. So the cost to the agency is predominantly the same as the cost of full-time employees here. So the salary levels are commensurate. The benefit is the continuity of staff members, because obviously we haven't got that chopping and changing of agency staff. So it gives Mark and the team a lot more continuity and hopefully a more motivated workforce who are here for the long term.
All right, thank you. No problem. Wilkinson?
Thank you very much for that. I was really interested when you just put in as a little addition, really, the cost savings on the diesel per week compared to the recharging. Absolutely applaud it, you know, and not just for the financial reasons. Obviously, the main thing is the environmental reasons. But what's the difference in the cost of purchasing the electric vehicle compared to a diesel?
Yeah, it's so all these new vehicles we're leasing rather than buying, and they tend to come in on a 10-year hire agreement through the new SFS contract. If you remember a while ago, we bought another report where we agreed to swap out some of the parks vehicles for electric. So it's the upfront cost is the big hit for us. So some of the new rover clips we got in this year. So if we were to switch those to electric now, there would be a charge for us, because obviously SFS have bought those vehicles in for us on the expectation that we'd be leasing them for 10 years. So we have to pay, if you remember that previous report, there was a calculation where they estimate the resale value or what they can get for those vehicles if they lease them somewhere else or resell them. If that's lower than what they're getting from us, we have to pay the difference on that. And then there is a slight increase on electric vehicles, but it's not much. They're not that much more expensive now than diesel. But it is just the cost of switching that lease to hire agreement. So what we will do going forward, and I know there's some member workshops coming up to look at budgets, we'll try and put some scenarios in front of you for costs associated with switching out 10 HGVs or 5 HGVs or what have you, and then it would be the cheapest option is to let the current lease hire agreements run their course, and then when we come to renew them, go electric. And we also need to look at charging, how we're going to charge them on site, because we'd need to do some infrastructure works up here as well.
Thank you. And presumably the cost is coming down as we speak, as it is with domestic vehicles, that electric cars are getting cheaper all the time.
And the technology is getting better as well.
Yeah.
So so there's also timing is go for the benchmarks.
So we can have Councillor Crabb and Councillor Wynne.
Thank you, Chair. Great report, thank you, Mark. The carbon footprint of our refuse fleet, our recycling fleet, is by far and away our largest footprint. So as such, we applaud everything you're doing to reduce that. You can't blame us for honing in on that electric e-collect truck, because a couple of years ago, we never really realised we were going to get there. So I'm very excited by that, following on from your question, because here's some stupid questions. Hey, thank you.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my phone.
I like a fanfare. I wondered, little points. How long does it take to charge? And I say it's 100 miles. Is that 100 miles max fully laden? I can imagine it running out, going to Whittle Ridge, etc. But and what happens if it does run out?
So that one actually had that's got a mobile charger. So as long as you've got a 3-pin socket, it sounds really basic, but
No, I know.
for such a big lorry. But as long as you've got a 3-pin socket, you can take the charger out to it and get it and charge it up. I'm trying to remember the charge time on that one. It's not particularly long. It's sort of half a day to charge it up.
Overnight.
Overnight's fine. Yeah, but there's. I mean, what I didn't say actually, what I meant, I did meant to say during the presentation was that depending on the diesel vehicle that you're looking at and the type of electric vehicle, it could save between 16 and 43 tons of carbon over a year. So we're looking at our carbon footprint this afternoon, and we'll be bringing a report, strategy and resources very soon. But it is those HGV vehicles that we do need to replace if we're going to make a big dent into our carbon footprint. It's that and our buildings are the two real big ones. Other things to think about are we're still getting some advice on it, but it looks like you need a 5-metre gap between each lorry when you're charging them overnight. So for the best one in the world, if we replaced all of our current HGVs, we wouldn't have room to do that down there behind, in our current parking area. So there's quite a few practical logistics to think about before we go all out to replace them.
A strange stipulation.
It's just fire risk when they're charging.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Crump?
Thank you. I'll join with everybody else, Mark, in saying that was a very, very uplifting half an hour.
Good.
Lovely. Well done. A question that occurred to me at the start, and it's only out of curiosity, and it was a quirk from many years ago. Is a complaint still the second call? So if somebody rings up, that's not a complaint.
So those were stage 1 complaints. That's what those figures refer to.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean. So what that means is it's a legitimate complaint.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And I mean it's fair to say that customer services have been doing a brilliant job as well throughout the summer. We've actually changed the sort of self-reporting system to try and weed out really lots of calls and self-cert forms that are telling us what we already know. So if we've already missed something, it clogs the system up if we've got 40 people trying to tell us about something that we've already reported. So what we're trying to do now is it requires our team to work with Sarah's and make sure that we're updating the public on our website. So we're putting those alerts on to say the reason you haven't been picked up is because of this. So that begs the question, does it mean that we're not doing any better? We're doing better at handling complaints. But
There's been a lot less feedback on the social.
yeah, and basically if we are missing lots and lots of rounds, we do know about it, and
In order for it to be a formal complaint, it needs at least 3 missed actions. So it's not a formal after 1 miss. It must be 3 before complaint take 1.
And the other thing, I'll join with Councillor. I keep saying that. In the fact that it's you have remarkable figures on that, Dennis, but I'm just going to query you on it. How do you get 26 quid worth of electric? I mean, if you assume that this thing, if he never touches the throttle, it's going to be 50 kilowatts, which I work out that at 10 pence a unit is £5 an hour. So do you do 5 hours work in a week, or you get free?
Yeah, I need to have a look and see how long it took to charge it. So With hindsight, I need to bring Steve Howlett in to let me know.
I think,
Yeah, but they charge really rapidly. It's it surprised us all. And a massive surprise was when it was fully loaded, getting it up the hill back to base with a full load, and apparently that it's still pulling up the hill.
oh, they'll fly at all, right, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got that plug that you're on, so Vulcan was on about the 3-pin plug. I've got a T6 van, and if you plug that one in with a 3-pin plug, you get 4 miles extra for every hour you leave it on the plug. So I wouldn't rely on that, would it?
Yeah, okay. I'll get Steve to come back next time.
Councillor Lane and then Councillor Walker.
The only point I can make, I think Paul actually made it, is the reality is, it sounds like you're doing better, which you are.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think somebody suggested that if there's a complaint in the same street, you don't record as another complaint because it's in the same street, is that the case?
No. Not no. If individuals in each street phone, and each of those have 3 missed, those will be classed,
Three miss, not one.
3 over a 12-month period, yeah. And then so, I know 15 in the same street. And my phone and say exactly the same thing, that is 15 complaints, that's not one complaint.
Yeah, we've got about 3 times.
3 times over a 12-month period, yeah.
Yeah.
I think what we really did, which I think has led to the fewer complaints, is sort of our end. We're really focusing on if we do miss a street, firstly it's letting people know as soon as on the alerts, and then the next thing is making sure that we go back and get it as soon as we can rather than leaving it, because I think last year we had there was a bit of round remodelling going on, and we were having to sort of leave people for double collections, and I think that's when we see a massive hike in complaints. So we really didn't do that very often at all over those 3 months.
Do I assume then that there's a bit of extra cost into waste and recycling because of the collections, the pickups to make sure that you don't get complaints? Because I see a few vehicles flying around Park Lanky quite a bit, sort of electric vehicle, or quite one has got either. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, there's a lot of vehicles flying around Lanky, and I'm thinking, well, perhaps got extra staff, which you've mentioned, got extra staff in here, and which means the cost of
the extra staff were, when I say extra, they were extra full timers, so cost neutral. The lorry, we got the extra lorry free of charge, so every time we do it demoing, then it's an extra on top of that. That's quite good to keep doing the trial.
Councillor Walker, you want to say something?
Yeah, just in relation to cost of electricity and things like that for charging these vehicles. I'm assuming that the council can get similar rates to a domestic user, and I currently pay 7 pence per kilowatt hour to charge my car. So, you're saying 10 pence saving, but costing £26 is probably about right.
No, I said it's impossible, but we'll.
Yeah. We'll wait for the.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back, I think to last month, SNL, we discussed, I think it was the ongoing idea that discussions with Torridge, in order to move forward, since we have the additional capacity coming up next year, which would be fantastic, for running ourselves, whether we're getting any further forward on that, or whether there's any interest.
We haven't discussed it any further since. I think when obviously that ship has sailed in terms of coming on board with our a joint facility, but certainly I think once our works are complete and we've got the new baler in and we're up and running here, we will certainly be able to consider letting external bodies use our facility up here. So that could include another authority if they wanted to.
Mark, I think Ken wanted to come in on that.
Yeah, it's just to make it clear that the offer had been made to Torridge, but Torridge decided to go their own route with it, really. But the offer remains open. As Mark says, we will have capacity and we'll be able to use that capacity by taking in waste from Torridge if that was required.
Okay.
Just an appendage to that, Councillor Lever and myself and Ken are meeting corresponding figures in across the water, as you were saying, Torridge on Wednesday, I think. And that's one of the things we'll bring up with them to chase that up and see if there's any progress and if they're willing to do that. Okay. Okay, can we move on? Any other comments? Can we, I think it's.
Can I just say, I'm no expert in electric vehicles, but, I did spend 2 or 3 hours in the, 361 energy event in the Pannier Market, where there were a series of presentations, quite short ones, that went through electric vehicles, charging, home, all the new options coming out. And I think, I think it was a shame, really. We, that it wasn't better attended. I know, Ricky, I know you were there, because I saw you I saw you there. But I just think there are more options here, and it would be really, I just think for a future meeting, it would be really good if we could ask 361 to put those presentations into a half an hour rather than 3 hours, to give us as members some of the idea of the new technology, because it's moving so fast. And the way you use cars, you actually charge it, you actually live in your house electricity from the car battery these days. I think it's like, it really is moved on, and the technology is beyond me, but I think it's something we as a council ought to be on top of, so we understand it. I just think that would be worth because there was a presentation about commercial vehicles and how the technology is moving on. So, I just think it'd be great if we could actually get that presentation here.
Yeah. Councillor Wilkinson, Councillor Ricky.
Just very briefly to say, yeah, I go along entirely with that, Mark, sorry, Councillor Prince. And at the recent, Coastal Issues Conference, there were authorities that are actually attended, and the members there came down in electric vehicles that the council owned. And they provide, so rather than pay the 45 pence a mile or whatever, there's the keys, go take the electric vehicle, which makes sense financially, I think.
So Ricky, now?
Yes, thank you, Jim. Coming from what Martin, Councillor Price said, it's quite, we made every effort to have the NDC there, having a stall. It was just not possible to work through. It was a shame, but we did try. The other thing I'd say is that in the CA, we have had a presentation by one of the speakers on electrification of private or business-wise, but thank you.
Any other points? Okay, I think we're just noting this report, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Item pest control service, item 7.
Members, thank you. That was exciting. Yes, Darren, yeah. I don't know, I've not been here that long, a year now or so. How many members have been here long enough to remember the pest control service provided by North Devon? He's figuring out about playing. Yeah, there we go. From the research and looking around and that sort of thing, it disappeared a period when staff had left and vehicles had come to an end, and it also coincided with a price rise where the council decided to put up its price to make the service pay for itself, and that resulted in a fall off. And I think members have decided and officers that perhaps it's the time to stop the service. Having looked at the data here and having run a very large pest control service in other authorities, it is quite a commercially viable option. And it's certainly something that there seems to be a lot of local demand for. Certainly in terms of environmental health, we get quite a lot of complaints about rats and various things, and bed bugs seem to be a rising issue. So I've spent a lot of time doing a lot of research, particularly in Devon and even dipping into Cornwall in terms of the demands. And a lot of local authorities you'll see in the report have stepped back from pest control. But it's because they're trying to offer a non-commercial services. They're trying to operate on a premium, and it's a drain on resources. But it's quite clear, and particularly looking at the Plymouth model, that it's quite easy with the right resources to be able to put a commercially viable and cost-effective pest control service
that will at least wipe its face and a little bit more in terms of the income that it can generate by offering a fair and competitive price to members of the public. They can get and obviously it being a council run service, it's underwritten by the council name in terms of the quality that we'd expect to provide. The commercial arm that's provided in national companies and smaller companies locally, it's very hard to find out what prices they're charging because their price is not open and transparent. But a council service, of course, it would be open and transparent, and people will know what they're getting for their money. If you go to some commercial services, I've looked at those locally. We can see that it says it's £80 for a pest control for a rat treatment. Well, if you think about it, the cost of coming out there in a van, you're not going to do it for £80, and it's not one visit. You can't do one visit for a rat treatment because you can't just throw poison down and then just leave it there and go away. So you've got to come back and check on it, which means another visit. So the person says, "Oh, well, I've got to come back." It's another £80. Suddenly, you've only paid £160 and not 80. So the prices are not open and transparent. So in terms of the council launching its own service, all we would need to do is find ourselves a suitably qualified pest control officer. I'm suggesting that that person needs to be somebody that's commercially astute, because within North Devon, there's a lot of commercial opportunities, particularly within leisure industries and hotels and catering, that will provide a base of what we call contract work. So it means that underwrites it, and then that allows us in future years to look at our pricing model to decide if we get a significant number of commercial properties that we can then maybe offer lower prices for certain pests that we feel that we can offer a better service to members of the public by offering a reduced price. So we need to get somebody that's a bit commercially astute, that's able to go around and get those contracts. And they're not difficult to get generally, even something like tackling the schools. You get school contracts, they're relatively easy to do, they're done out of hours, and they're all programmed to work. So they can be done quite easily. In terms of the cost, I have within the report, I've done some calculation of the typical numbers that you might expect for this type of volume and the locality, looking at other ones. And also the cost of providing that service of having one qualified officer, a vehicle, training and the equipment that goes with it. And that sort of at least covers the cost of providing the service and a bit more to resilience to build into those other services. One of the other things it will also do, having a pest control service, will allow us within environmental health. We have a lot of complaints about rats in the streets, and they involve a lot of investigation. Whereas if you get a qualified, experienced person, they can go out and give advice. They'll probably end up selling services to some of the people in the streets, as well as trying to fix a whole area approach rather than an individual from that point of view. So in terms of that, I'd say we do have council vehicles at the moment, which are lined. In terms of a pest control service, you have to have a lined van. It needs to be lined inside because obviously the poisons and baits inside of it. We do have dog vans that are like that, so we could probably repurpose one of those in a trial period while we're bringing this person in until we're confident about what sort of vehicle that we need going forward. In terms of there, so there'll be minimal upfront costs other than the qualified staff. And I think that's basically it in terms of what to do. It's just members' idea is whether they would support us developing that going forward. As I said at the beginning, it is critical on us being able to find that suitably qualified staff. If we can't find anybody that's competent and able to run it, then it's a non-runner from our point of view. We won't be able to do that. We won't be pushing forward until we know that we can get somebody that's suitably qualified and experienced. I have done some local research, and there are quite a lot of people around that would be very interested that are quality solidified. So from that point of view, there's two recommendations in here. One is to allow the head of planning and health to develop that service and go forward. And the final one is the pest control is no longer in the constitution. So that those words probably need to be quite specifically just added to the constitution. So for the council to approve that. So any questions?
Thank you very much. That was very clear and concise. Thank you. Councillor Weaver?
Yeah, thank you. Very, very thoroughly gone through the report. Thanks very much for that. And it on the face of it looks like a really good idea. I was just wondering, in terms of putting your figures together, are you just looking at North Devon, or are you thinking this is something that we could share with neighbouring authorities?
It's as big as you want it to be is the answer. I've prepared this report as a starter model.
Yeah.
In terms of what it'd be, but yes, you know, people, I've spoken to Torridge and them being the easier one to deal with, but there are some, you've seen the report, some other councils that are stepping back. So be able to sell some of those other services to those is something that can easily grow once we've got there.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lynn?
I mean, it is for starters, I mean, we need to provide, you know, we provide a good service now, but we need to, it is a non-statutory service, so we don't need to provide it there, they do it. And this one doing, and he said you costing £12,000 last year for pest control services, that, which I presume is not added on to your figure you've got here now. Is these figures exactly right? Because you've been saying 92,000, but I got up to 101.
I'll need to double check.
Add all figures that I've got.
I didn't take that 12,000 into because that's because we've not. I mentioned that as a figure in there, but we've not taken off because the contractual arrangements and what we've got done that. So we just left that as
You mentioned 12,000, but I think you've had the figures up. You wrote 92,000 there. So I'm assuming you added the 12 on. You've had the figures up. I lost it on the screen.
John, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah.
I think there's a 12,000 difference between the 92,000 potential income and the 80,000 cost. That was highlighted. The estimated income is obviously is estimated, so it's just demonstrating that based on a anticipated level of volume from what Darren's looked at, that the level of income would cover the actual outlay.
Yeah, but the level of income is suggested there goes up, should be under 1,000, not 92.
Oh, what was over the table?
Yeah.
Recheck.
You don't need Excel when you're up.
Yeah, no. Word doesn't add it up for you, doesn't it? It relies on my old calculator, so.
72,018 comes to 90, so
Yeah.
it's probably slightly more than the 92. But I think the key message there, members, is that there's a level of comfort that the total income will cover the anticipated costs. It's a service that can't make a profit, so it's a regulatory service. So obviously, over a 3-year period, it's demonstrated breaks even. It's just to give you that reassurance that the cost that's incurred will be covered by the level of revenue stream that comes forward.
It concerns me that it's a non-statutory service. We need to be, instead of dealing with pest control, and pet bugs and all the rest of it, it's a bit, you know. Anyway, but I think at the end of the day, you've got to run the risk that if we start taking on this service as well, you're going to end up doing the reverse, because you want to increase prices anyhow to compete with other authorities. You can't compete with Plymouth because that's a massive authority. And to me, the reality is, if you're careful, you end up losing the pest control services we've got privately in this area as well, which actually creates work for other people as well. So I'm a bit devious about, you know, I think this authority needs to focus correctly. I can see the commercial bit, but I don't know whether you want to go in there doing pest control as commercial, part of the commercial bit as well. Because I think you need to focus more on, because actually all you're doing is create more work and focus more on what we're doing here with that.
If I can just comment on that, in terms of the pricing model and looking at other areas, I think the pricing structure that's proposed, we're not competing with the man in the van, so the small individuals. You know, we're never going to undercut those. We wouldn't want to either. You know, that's why I'm saying that the price needs to be competitive, so that people have a choice, so people can go to these local businesses if they want. But then some of these businesses are not always fair and transparent, you know, especially some of the big nationals, you know, in terms of what they deal with. So we're trying to get somewhere in between those levels. So the smaller businesses, I think, you know, they can rest assured that we're not going to be trampling on them in terms of undercutting them in terms of pricing.
I'll come to you in a minute, Cameron. Councillor Crabb and Councillor Pryor as well.
Very, very briefly, I mean, if, for example, this didn't work brilliantly and we've now got it in the constitution, what would our exit strategy be?
Go to that constitution.
Okay.
No, it's just the power within the constitution to be able to provide a pest control service. So I guess the power could choose not to provide it. Is that one?
Chair, everybody out there expects that. You know, they ring up because they think we still got the service. And when we did have the service, we had some fantastic staff, and it was a really welcome service for folk. And I think, you know, I can remember when we stopped the service, and it was because the guy retired who was doing the job. It was fantastic, and it was, you know, it was more about not being able to replace him at that time than not being the demand for the service. So I think, you know, and I expect, you know, customer services tell you, people still ring up on a daily basis, I expect, you know, which is the problem. So, you know, so I think, you know, I think being responsive to the need is a really important priority for the council too. So, and there's no financial risk. I don't know what the harm would be.
No, that's a good point. Councillor Glasgow.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Prowse. I think, you know, I personally, I would have expected to be able to ring the council if I had a rat problem or something. It's not something I thought about, but I think for a lot of members of the public would feel a lot more confident in a council run service than finding somebody online and not knowing quite what they're getting.
It is a double-edged sword. Having done this before elsewhere, is, you know, some people would never come to the council because we're the council, but a lot of people come here because they trust that name. It's something because we haven't done it for so long, we have to build back up again. It'll take a little while to get that, you know, so people know that they can ring this and get the service. But yes, as I said, you know, we do get lots of calls, but people have got to that level where they don't expect it. They sort of expect, well, you know, what you can do, but particularly wasps in the summer season, it's a big thing. Who deals with wasps? And you know, it's a relatively easy thing to deal with, and people just expect the council to do it. So
yeah. Councillor David Knight.
Yeah, I certainly think there's a benefit, particularly in land and control of North Devon Council and North Devon Council buildings. Well, obviously we didn't have our own officer, so you didn't have to go around procuring contracts or works. Those, and certainly the more buildings or the more housing we have or anything like that, we have an officer, but also having an officer that's probably multi-training helps out with the environmental issues. You're not sending one person, you're sending somebody that could actually deal with that and don't have to send somebody else. So actually there's a cost benefit time saving in that loop, that you've sent somebody and they go, oh, this is the problem. Actually having an officer that can deal with 2 or 3 things all at the same time, you know, more training, training somebody who's already trained rat stuff, but actually training other issues, environmental stuff, then actually you've got an officer there that's got a lot of weapons to actually deal with complaints that come in. So, yeah,
that was one of the things that, tell by this face, I've been around the block a bit, in terms of these sort of things. But, you know, some of the youngsters that come in, they haven't got those wide skills. But especially when somebody starts getting, you know, when you get a persistent bug in your house and someone tells you about bed bugs, they can be pretty difficult to get rid of. You need an expert to tell you what you need to go, and you can, you know, a lot of times telling people what to do, and yeah, having that experience makes a big difference.
Yeah, officer, did you can?
Yeah, can I just come back on one of Councillor Lane's points, Chair, because we do have a commercialisation strategy in place, and as officers, you've tasked us to go up and explore opportunities to be more commercial. And so, whilst that commercial activity may well bring us into competition with outside companies and outside firms, that is a principle really that you've already established, I suggest, by adopting the commercialisation strategy and tasking us to find those opportunities. It's right that you consider it each time, but I wouldn't want officers to go away discouraged, feeling that we can't bring forward options where it might bring us into competition with outside companies.
Councillor Walker.
Yeah, just to say, in my lead member role, I had a briefing about this, and I fully support it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you, Dan.
I'll
Move the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Bell. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Yeah, thank you. Item 8. Future High Street project updates. Sarah Jane.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair. You'll have all seen the report. It is a report to note on the progress of the Future High Street Fund project, but I'll just take you through some of the pertinent points and updates that we've had since the report was published. So just a quick recap, you know the interventions that that comprise the Future High Street Fund project. As you know, the pannier market intervention was delivered on budget. the Butchers Row Cross Street element that was part of the programme is now being dealt with as a separate project. So this report will focus on updates related to Queen Street, Bear Street car park and the access from Alexandra Road and the work to 36 and 37 Boundport Street. So taking Queen Street, Bear Street car park first, the contract was awarded to McPlant Construction Limited in February 24, and they started work on phase 1 on the 7th of May. The project has been split into 3 phases to ensure that an element of car parking across Queen Street, Bear Street remains available at all times. The original end date for phase 1 was the 27th of September, but we had reported a 2-week delay. It was subject to some planing works that were taking place on the 23rd of September, and it's not in this report, members, but as an update, and you will have seen it in the press, I expect, that we have incurred, so the planing that took place, some CBR testing followed, which is a Californian bearing ratio, and is effectively testing the standard of the subbase and its ability to accommodate the surface, found that some areas of the car park needed some full reconstruction. That is happening, but what that means is that the programme has been delayed until the 31st of October. They are unforeseen works. We had done a set of 4 holes prior to the design of the car park, but we always knew that we would need to test to make sure, and this is what has resulted in the slight additional delay. That has been reported to 2 businesses, and we are in conversation with them. What I would say is that Bear Street car park will remain open, so there will be car parking remaining on site. What we are doing, however, is that does test the programme for Queen Street, Bear Street car park. So we are working with the external design team to see whether we need to look at the approach to phases 2 and 3 to address those programme challenges. That started on Friday in that I went to Exeter to meet with the civil engineers that were working with on this project, and members are continuing to update you on that progress. Generally though, with that exception, the works are going well. The drainage is all in for phase 1, and having had a progress meeting last week, McPlant Construction Limited are confident with that 31st of October date. Phase 2 to Bear Street car park will start immediately after completion of phase 1, and that, as members are aware, involves the new entrance to Alexandra Road also. Phase 3 is the current compound for 36, 37 Boundport Street, and so the contract with McPlant involves them coming back to site to complete phase 3 once that compound is clear. In terms of 36, 37 Boundport Street, we awarded the contract to Pierce Construction in February 24 also. Pre-construction works commenced almost immediately to include the erection of the scaffolding, and I'm sure members have seen that progress on site. Works to date have focused on 36 Boundport Street. That was always the intention. All roofing works are now all but complete, which include, there are 3 roofs to 36, so lower, middle and mansard. The contract with Pierce Construction included a number of provisional sums and target savings, and it had to be set up in that way because 36 Boundport Street is listed, and we weren't able to do all of the opening works in advance. We have come up with some challenges, but pragmatic solutions have been found, and that was particularly to do with the main facade on 36 Boundport Street, where it was found to be in poorer condition than anticipated. And whilst we did think that we'd have to prop that facade internally, a more pragmatic solution has been found with the contractor, which helps both in terms of programme and budget. We hold monthly meetings, progress meetings, and that includes a complete go through of any requests for information that's come through from the contractor. And in order to ensure that progress is not hindered by that process, those meetings have now moved fortnightly. As with the car park project, we have monthly cost reports from the quantity surveyor that we're working with on this project, and they are scrutinised to include the Section 151 officer. At the last cost report, as I've mentioned in this report at 4.18, we had 38% of the contingency remaining on this project. That will sound low, but the contingency was there particularly for 36 Fairport Street, because that's where the unknowns sat predominantly. 37 Fairport Street is a new build, and therefore the quantity surveyor was able to cost those much more concisely. As some of you may know, a couple of members came and had a look around the site recently, so to have a look at progress, and if anybody else was particularly interested, they are more than welcome. We can arrange that. I will continue to bring further reports to update you, but for now, members, it's to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah Jane. Any questions or comments? Councillor Peterlee, then Councillor Ricky Harry.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. From my own experience, I know how difficult it is to be doing work in town centres, especially something that's quite big and disruptive. And you know, and I think you and the team and the contractors have done quite well to contain the level of disruption as much as you have. And I know there've been complaints from surrounding businesses, but I think that's sort of that. I think members have to expect that to happen, and have to expect those sort of delays to happen. So I just want to say, you know, it's I think from my point of view, it looks like the work's going really well. One question I did have was the contingency on 36 and 37. The overall, what percentage was that as a contingency of the contract value as a whole to start with?
So we reduced it down because of the way that we set the target savings and the provisional sums. So we increased the number of provisional sums on 36 faculty to sit alongside the contingency. The contingency sits, John, it's about 5, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the provisional sums sit alongside that,
Okay.
which were they were increased to give some buffer also. So it's difficult to give you the contingency percentage without talking about the provisional sums.
Okay, but the two,
the two together have given us that buffer, and the unknowns on 36 Fairport Street have pretty much been identified now, because the works have got to such a point that we're putting that building back together now. So everything else has been opened up, and the provisional sums did do a really good job. It's just that we have had 2 particular challenges. The facade that I've talked to you about, so we weren't anticipating that level of support, and the roofs were in poorer condition than we anticipated, but I do mention that in the report, particularly the mansard roof, where we had to find quite an innovative solution to maintain as much of that roof as possible, whilst ensuring that from a dry and wet rot perspective, that we were managing that properly to ensure that we've got a building that is protected and sustained in the long term.
Thanks.
Councillor Ricky, now, you want to say something, John?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. To come back on Councillor Lever, and just follow up on what Sarah Jane was saying. So the contingency, 38%, as Sarah Jane said, you know, I think seems quite low considering where we are in the project. But the provisional sums, and a lot of those are being worked through. Some of those provisional sums, actual costs came in lower than the provisional sums. So that is why it's got to be looked at in addition to the contingency. Some of those would be offset by other actuals that have come in higher, but we're managing that within the total budgetary framework. And as Sarah Jane said, we're meeting monthly with the quantity surveyors, scrutinise those cost reports and work through those provisional sums. So a lot of those unknowns are now known. So I hope that provides members with reassurance that we are working through those, and that level of contingency still gives us that comfort.
Councillor Ricky, now.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah Jane, for that. It's I quite fancy a visit myself, I must admit. Do I get a hard hat for that? Yeah.
We will need to arrange it, but yes, full PPE is needed.
I suppose it was inevitable that the facade of 36 was going to be you couldn't really work out what was wrong once you started the work. It's like taking an old car into a garage and then finding out the truth. That was in there. But the same with bridge buildings when they took the roof off. It was a nightmare from then on. So quite understand that. So my question is simple. Number point 7. It says a unique sustainability tracker. How do I find that? If it's unique, I've got to see it, please.
Yeah,
There's only one label.
I'd like to know. I'd like to say thank you very much for answering.
I can absolutely provide that to you. What it's done. So that tracker accompanied the project from its inception,
Yeah.
and it identified all of the opportunities available to us that we've gone through and taken those opportunities where we can and discounted them where they're not appropriate for the buildings. But yeah, we can absolutely share that tracker with you.
Thank you.
Councillor David there.
Yeah, I've just got a query on the phasing. The report talks about delivering coloured tarmac finished surfaces, and then obviously you've got a live building site. I'm personally be a little bit hesitant about delivering that final finished surface if you've got a lot of trucks and things delivering to site, or you've got that part of the compound that then needs work to it, which is going to need heavy work and heavy plant. I'd be a little bit just hesitant in delivering anything finished until that major construction bit is done, because I know certainly in large developments in my area, it's very last minute, the final furlong of the finished tarmac goes down. So I don't know.
And that's why in the report I wanted to mention that will happen during phase 2. So that surface that isn't required in phase 1 for the footpaths, etc., that won't happen until the end of phase 2 for that very reason, so that we can ensure that all of that construction traffic isn't coming over those surfaces.
Councillor Crowden.
Yeah, I was one of the brave ones that went up that scaffolding on a very wet and windy day, but it was worth it to see the standard of work, and how lucky we are to have somebody like Pierce Construction here in North Devon to carry on the work. You know, there's lots of skilled guys that are needed for that sort of job, and they've got them. So I just wanted to say how proud I am of the team that are, delivering the most exciting project in Barnsley has been certainly in my lifetime, I think. I'm really proud of it. And actually, when you look down, the actual groundworks are all done now in 37, aren't they? All the foundation works are all there. So, as SJ says, there should be very few unforeseens from now on in. So, but the project's going well. There is disruption, as Peter Lever said, and there is no way that you can avoid that. Some people, I think, understand that. Some you're never going to satisfy, and social media means that you can't keep answering some things. But we've dealt with the issue, I think, pretty well with the public, and so that's another part of the team with communications and with Hannah Harrington's team as well. So I think I just like to put a mark in and say thank you to them for getting to where we are with so few upsets, really. But it is a fantastic scheme.
Thank you. Good point. I suppose can I just follow on from that as well, because it's phase 2 between October and February. The access to Alexandria Road, which obviously is a big circular aspect. How much disruption will that entail? Will that mean traffic is going to be disrupted heavily, or is it just a matter of opening something up? I mean, I can't imagine that. Do we know how much it will be?
So the works to Alexandra won't be throughout that period, because that involves the works to Bear Street as well. So the first thing to say, it will be for a contained period of time. I can provide you with a detail as to what that looks like. We're working with the county council, but we don't expect road closures during that period. There might be signal controls.
Yeah. As far as road closures are concerned. Right. Any other comments? Questions? Well, this is anybody move to note this?
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Crowd, seconded by Councillor Crabb. Thank you very much, Sarah Jane, for this. Agenda item 9 is swimming in the sea pool. Ellen?
Morning. Morning members, morning chair.
Skateboard.
Yeah.
Probably break the winner.
So, members, officers were approached by members of Linton and Lynmouth Town Council in 2022 about the potential for a group of them to take over the former Victorian sea pool at Lynmouth. Members will note from the report with the photos and the plans that North Devon own the freehold of this asset, which sits in the intertidal habitat on Lynmouth coastline. Whilst North Devon Council officers can't support works to this asset under our own remit because of the associated risks and costs, Lynmouth Sailing Club, CIC, have come forward to take the asset on and carry out works to promote its future use. The details are set out in the body of the report, but in summary, officers are recommending to members that members approve the transfer of the freehold of this asset to Lynmouth Sailing Club, CIC, and henceforth NDC have no further dealings with the asset. The asset is handed over in its current condition with no financial or other commitment from NDC, and members agree that either each party bears its own costs in the transfer or Linton Sailing Club contribute towards North Devon Council's costs. And to clarify, no further rights are granted across the NDC's land.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Dorchester.
Chair, I think we've got to support this in absolute, with great credit to the officer on this one. It's a win-win. We've got an asset over there that we need to get back up and running again, maintain and whatever. And Linton Sailing Club are saying, well, we'll do it, we'll take it on. It's not going to cost us anything. The advent of cold water swimming is enormous across the whole of the North Devon region, and particularly in Lynmouth.
Yeah.
And there they are, prepared to take it on. We don't particularly want it, and the asset's going to be there for everybody to use anyway. So fully happy to go with the officer's recommendations on this, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Petrinos, as ward councillor, President.
I was going to say what Councillor Wilkinson just said. So you could have kept your mouth shut, man.
Oh, thank you, Mark.
It is a win-win, isn't it? The community wants to do it. It's got an organisation with a track record of doing stuff, and it takes the potential risk off the council's books and gives it to somebody else. So from the council's point of view, it's a benefit. So I mean, from the council's point of view, I mean the report talks about legal costs. I think perhaps if the council covered some of the legal costs, it would certainly help.
Yeah, thank you. Petrinos, any other questions or comments? Councillor.
Pedantic point. There's quite a funny typo about 412. And no, it's not a criticism. It's just that you were asked to make a contrition. That's pedantic, you see.
Oh yes, okay. Apologies.
Just proving I read it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, wholeheartedly support this. Great idea.
Okay, people are generally in favour. Can we move the recommendation? Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson, all in favour? We're opposed to that. Anybody against? No. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Hal.
Chair, just very quickly, I know we've just voted on it, it's just too late to talk about it, but would we really be tight if, say, for example, 2.3 became a problem? Are we really gonna worry about that too much? It's only a few quid, isn't it?
We did mention this.
Yeah, I just talked about that, I've just seen it there now.
My own view is that we wanted to do this, so if
Yeah,
it
yeah.
becomes a problem, we ask them, and if they don't want to contribute, then we just go ahead anyway.
Yeah.
Would that, I mean, we're void on it, is everybody in agreement with that? Is anybody actually opposed to that?
I'm saying promise not to sing to us, John, that's no promise.
Okay,
Thank you.
Household Support Fund.
Morning, councillors. Apologies, there's not a formal report. There wasn't time in between the announcement and everything. So there was some wording sent round on Friday, just with some options. So this is our sixth household support fund since 2021, and for this one we're being awarded around about 350,000 from Devon County, who themselves have been awarded around about 5 million from their national fund. We're working with Devon County and other districts to look at that best way of administering, and we would like to do exactly what we've done on previous schemes, and that is part applications and part direct awards. We're proposing direct award to pension pool age households this time. Looking at our figures, we have about 2,700 households who claim CTR, so capital tax reduction, and that is a means tested benefit. Of those, around about 1,700 receive pension credit, so therefore they'll be receiving that winter payment, which leaves just under 1,000 households who we know are on low income but aren't actually receiving pension credit. So of those options that we have sent around, it's really to decide whether we want to do a blanket award to all of those 988 households, or whether we want to split it down slightly because we have those income levels for those households, whether we want to stagger those payments to those. Whatever option that we go with will leave us around about 150,000 plus for applications. We currently have around about 20 third-party charities and doctors and various organisations who make referrals to us on behalf of their clients, so that will remain as previously. So yes, really it's just that decision whether we want to award all 988, and if so, at what level, or whether we want to stagger those payments depending on income.
Are you asking us to make a decision today?
Whether committee wishes to, or whether everyone's happy for us as officers to make that decision. More than happy either way.
I'm a bit uncertain making a decision like that without all the figures in front of me. I mean, you could.
Yeah, I mean, it was in that email that I sent on Friday. Hopefully most people only have seen it. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Sorry, I misread your email. It's gone out this morning to them.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were telling me to send it anyway.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought it went on Friday. Apologies.
Chairman, we normally delegate it to the officers. Is
that what's normally done?
Well, that's the way forward, isn't it?
Is that what happened last year?
It's what's happened before. I mean, we've taken urgent decisions previously. I've got delegated power to take an urgent decision if there isn't time to bring it to committee. But because we had the item on the agenda anyway as an update, we thought we'd bring it to members to see if members want to take that decision.
Yeah, I propose that we delegate the decision to the officers in line with the figures previously presented.
Okay. Before we do that, Councillor Lever, do you want to just say something?
Yes, just quickly, I have got the figures in front of me. I'm probably the only person here who has. As I understand it, there's a range of options, but certainly there's enough in the household support fund to provide for the sort of levels of grant that we give to people normally, and to help with this winter fuel payment as well. So it's not going to be robbing Peter to pay Paul, as I understand. Is that right?
So previously with our direct awards, we've awarded in many different ways. So I think it's Household Support Fund 2 we actually awarded to pensioners on that occasion. Since then we've looked at working age households who get CTR. That was the last 2 awards we've done. So this would be, instead of awarding to working age households, it will be pensioners instead, but there's never enough money, unfortunately, to go round. No. I would say we've probably awarded, up until this point, we have awarded more to working age up until this point rather than pensioners, which is why us and other districts are all now looking at concentrating on pensioners this time.
Just to add to that, that doesn't detract working age payment to applying, because obviously they can apply through the application process, so through the referral agencies, they can still apply to the Household Support Fund. Just like 361 Energy obviously referred to us, so I think we touched on it for council about obviously looking at the energy efficiency homes. We haven't obviously got that data on every house in terms of what energy efficiency is, but through 361 Energy, those referrals can also then go through to the Household Support Fund, in addition to the other grant schemes that they promote as well.
Councillor Lynn?
Did you mention, Sarah, that they do both pensioners and the younger people?
Not with the £350,000 we've got, because if we were to do that, it just wouldn't leave enough for applications. It would only leave us probably enough, just based on previous application processes, probably enough to run for 2 or 3 months rather than the full 6 months of applications. And the thing is, with applications, they have to prove that vulnerability and that immediate need. So we always like to make sure we've got enough in the application pot for those. So everyone who really is in need is able to apply for that full 6 months. So in theory, yes, we could, but it would leave so little for applications, it wouldn't really be workable.
Okay, Councillor Craven recommended that we delegate this decision to the appropriate officers.
That's right.
We also put in that you keep us up to speed.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Bell, did you want to say something?
Thank you. Is that all right, Chair? Well, when do we need this decision by? It's just a fair amount of information. My head is not always the best at taking in things quickly. It's good at taking in things, but when do we need this decision by?
Well, we need, we had a meeting with Devon County at the end of last week, and they would really like us all to have our application processes up and running as soon as possible. So they've said by November, but if I'm honest, we'd obviously like ours open prior to that if possible. I mean, obviously that wouldn't stop us opening an application process even without that final decision on the awards, but it's just bearing in mind when people are going to need these awards. It's when it's over winter, so we would look at, you know, making those payments November time. I'm thinking maybe early December, just to ensure that when their bills are in, when they're chopping up their cards at the post office, they've got some money in their hand in order to be able to pay for that.
Sure, and it is winter coming, isn't it?
I think November SNR to make a decision will probably be a bit late now. Let's go with Councillor Crabb's recommendation. Somebody seconded, Councillor Lane seconded.
Sorry, before you take the vote, can I just ask for, ordinarily we'd ask, we'd delegate powers to an officer to take the decision in consultation with ex-member. And I'd ask for that in this particular case, because you're asking officers to take a decision on how much to award through this scheme. And I think there should be some member oversight on it, please.
Yeah, agreed, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Which member? So you've got, we could go leader or we could go lead member for resources.
Lead member for resources. I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Happy with that.
Thank you.
Everybody happy with it? Okay with that? Yeah. Okay, we all vote in favour of Councillor Crabb's recommendation? That's unanimous. Thank you very much for the report, and I think that ends the meeting.